Good afternoon, everybody. We are just going to give it another minute or so to let some additional people come on, and then we will be right with you. These webinars are becoming, you know, the hair is becoming less webinar friendly with every week. And you have more hair, Barry, as well.
I was just about to say, you want to try having a beard, Emer, it's even worse.
I'm not even going to go there, Barry. That'll be the next step up. The minute the hairdressers and the beauticians open, it will be a great relief.
Yeah.
Okay. So guys, I think we'll just get started because we are on a relatively tight time frame considering the breadth of kind of expertise and information that I know that you each have to share. Very welcome everybody who's on the call already. Thank you very much for joining us today. You're most welcome, and I hope you're all keeping safe and well over the last number of weeks and months. Over and above our own personal circumstances, I guess the last few weeks have been a significant sort of challenge for businesses, and the term VUCA has certainly come to the fore in terms of the environments that we're operating in. I'm delighted today to be able to welcome Denise Collins, the HR Director in Norbrook, Cathy Donnelly, Senior Director of Talent in Liberty IT, and Barry Phillips, Chair of Legal Island, who are going to share some of the stories of how they have successfully navigated the kind of overnight demands and changes and expectations of their organisations, and as leaders in those organisations, how they've risen to those challenges. And in answering maybe some questions around what they've done, we might get some learning ourselves around ideas that we can take forward, both in the short term, but also in the medium to long term as we try to return to some kind of new normality post-COVID. To get us kicked off, we thought a good way to start might be to let each of the guys introduce themselves and give you a little bit of context to what they've been doing over the last number of weeks and months to get to the point that we're at now. And following that, I will then go through and ask some questions and get into a bit more detail on some of the elements. We would ask that you use the question function. So as we go through, if there are things that you think that you would like to get a bit more detail on or are interested in, please drop them into the question function. We will try our very best to get to them today. If we can't, we'll maybe follow up with you afterwards. So without further ado, Cathy, I might ask you to kick off and just give us a bit of an introduction and background to what you've been up to, how you've been filling your time for the last 2 months.
Great, thanks Emer, and thanks for the invitation to join the panel today. Looking forward to hearing from Denise and Barry as well, and taking away a few things that we can implement in Liberty IT. And I'm going to refer to Liberty IT as LIT throughout, because that's as we fondly know it within the organisation. And so what we found from an LIT perspective really has been communication has been absolutely key. And I would go so far as to say you can't over communicate at the moment. And we've spent a lot of time really working with our employees to make sure that we're creating a sense of security with them and a sense of belonging with the LIT organisation. So one of the first things that we introduced was our virtual town halls. So they happen fortnightly, and there are LIT all-together calls. They're hosted by our managing director and a member of our steering team. And really what we're doing in these sessions is talking a little bit about the business, because it's also important for our employees to know that while we're thinking about the personal situation that we all find ourselves in, the business is continuing to operate and giving people that sense of security that their jobs are safe. But we also do a lot of personal sharing during the all-together calls as well. So very quickly, we had our motto introduced in one of the first all-together calls. It's family first, work second. And if I think back to the call that I hosted right back at the beginning of all of this, I did some personal sharing myself in terms of some of the personal challenges I was having, managing kids, managing work. And the feedback we're getting from our employees is that they're loving the authenticity and that they're seeing from senior leadership that maybe they haven't seen before. They appreciate the fact that we're sharing our vulnerabilities and that they are really seeing the human side of us. So that's been really important. And what we do during those all together calls as well is employees submit questions in real time. So it also allows us to address questions and issues as they arise and in the moment. I think at the beginning we all thought this was going to be a couple of weeks, maybe a month at most, and when reality started to dawn that this was going to be the new normal, what we saw from our talent and communications team was, I suppose, a sense of experimentation and innovation. So what we've done is we've basically created our office offer and our office environment online. So, you know, we're experimenting with remote recruitment, and we have remote onboarding. We've moved our entire L&D offer into a virtual environment, and we're running virtual.
Cathy. We've just lost Cathy's sound for a second here. Bear with us as we just work out what has happened. If you try even the mic on and off again. Are you back?
Sorry, I'm back.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
No harm, that's fine.
I don't know where you lost me, but I'll pick up just in terms of the next slide. Is that okay?
You just learning offering online, so that's where we got to.
Yeah, and so from an employee engagement perspective, I think it's safe to say engagement at LIT has never been higher. Employees are feeling secure. They're really appreciating the effort that the organisation is putting into them, and we're seeing this coming through strongly on our social media. So we've had people doing dress-ups for huddles. We've had people introducing their kids and their pets. And on the left-hand side, we have my own team. That was our Sips and Shades event kicking off the weekend one Friday afternoon. So we're enjoying personal time that we would never have done before. So we're seeing the impact, and actually it's having a really positive impact on our recruitment brand externally as well. And then there's also time for fun. So we are running quizzes, we have puzzles, we're sharing gardening tips, and we're sharing cooking recipes. But we're also keeping it top of mind. When does fun become too much fun? And I know because of the way our organisation is very matrixed into the US organisation, I think the second week of mandated work from home, I had 7 hours of scheduled fun on my calendar. I don't know about anybody else, but it's never been more intense. It's never been busier. I haven't got 7 hours to have fun. So we've had to be conscious about that and make sure that we're not trying to create too much of that fun environment. So as I said, our motto has been family first, work second. I do think we've lived and breathed that over the last couple of months. We put a lot of effort into providing our employees and our leaders with tools and resources to help them through recent times. So we've created an intranet page around COVID-19 that has our FAQs. Every organisational email that goes out has links to the employee assistance programme. We've extended our employee assistance offer to include family members, so just not the employee. And we've got a lot of resources there around physical and mental health as well. And we've provided extra support for our leaders, so helping them to spot signs of stress, helping them to support employees through moments of stress and grief management and other topics similar to that. On a more, again, fun side, we're running virtual Pilates, we've got virtual yoga classes running, and we've got a really strong take up on those. And then finally, we have our weekly blog, our Make Yourself at Home blog, and that is written by employees for employees, and it has a wealth of information. So it's got activities for kids to do inside, activities to do outside, tips for homeschooling, recipes, ideas around personal development, and again, webinars around supporting you with your physical and mental health. So we've got a pretty full offer in place. We do a fortnightly sentiment survey that's done through the global organisation, and what we're hearing strongly from our employees is they're loving the focus that the organisation has put on them, and they really appreciate the family first, work second approach that we're taking.
Brilliant. Thank you, Cathy. There's definitely a kind of resonance there, and the never waste a good crisis statement, but that out of crisis can come very positive things in terms of how your organisation and your employees see you. And I think you're having a similar experience, but in a very different context. Denise, are you happy to give us a bit of background on what the last couple of months have looked like from your worldview?
Sure, Emer, thanks, and thanks, Cathy. A lot of similarities, but equally a lot of differences from what we're doing. So Norbrook Laboratories is a family-owned veterinary pharmaceutical business, so we were deemed an essential business that had to remain open, or has to remain open, during the whole COVID-19 pandemic. And being a manufacturing business, it was impossible for us to move everybody to working from home. So we've had that different dynamic of having to understand, how do we keep a business open and make our employees feel safe throughout all of this? So like Cathy said, we started very early on. We did equally think it was going to be a few weeks. 10 weeks on, we're still very much in the planning phases. But the thing that we did was, our first thing was, employee safety is our #1 priority. Yes, we need to get the products out to the customer, but we will only do that if we feel, and our employees feel, that they're in a safe environment. So we set up a task force 10 weeks ago now of about 20 cross-functional managers in the business, who have met every single day, including some Saturdays and Sundays, to react to the ever-changing measures that were coming out in the early stages, because nobody really knew what we were doing. We were all in the dark, and it was almost make it up as you go along, but try and make sure that you were doing the right thing. And I suppose the biggest challenge for us very early on was, we have about 1,500 employees across 3 sites here in Newry. How do you depopulate but still run a business? And we didn't really have a working from home philosophy in Norbrook. We're a very paper-based organisation, we're a manufacturing organisation. So traditionally we had everybody on site. Well, we had to flick that switch. We took the leadership from the top, and that's one thing for me is very, very important in all of this, that you have strong leadership from the top. And within a number of days, we had several hundred office-based employees working from home, which was phenomenal, both from a trust piece, we'd never done it before, but also from our ability to do it in a short space of time. Now, those employees, some of those employees are on a rotation, that they do come into the office frequently because they need to fulfill their full job, but that was significant for us. The other thing which Cathy mentioned there was communication is key. For me, that's probably the most important thing that we have done in all of this, is communicate. We traditionally would have done what we would call a manager cascade. So even we would have real-time town halls, but we would use that for managers then to communicate down. We stopped that immediately because we felt that every single employee needed to hear the message loud and clear from the CEO. So we went to getting out to every employee through good old paper-based systems, because not everybody is on the electronic system. So straight to every employee at the same time. And that has probably been the most positive response from our employees. They're hearing it firsthand. They respect the openness, the transparency, and they respect the fact that we have said we don't have all the answers. So you might have lots of questions for us. We don't know all of the answers at the minute, but we'll get back to you when we have the answers. And they like that and they appreciate that. And we put all the measures in place that everybody probably has done, the social distancing, the hand sanitizers, etc. And we built that up over the last number of weeks. But then we got to a stage where we all realized in the world that actually this isn't really a 2-week, 2-month, or even 10-week program. This is the new normal. So we moved about 2 weeks ago from reacting to proactive planning. What are we going to do in the long term? We're in this for the long term. So how do we build confidence in our employees that we're capable of doing this on a sustainable level? And the question for us was, how do we ensure that those that have been working remotely know that it's safe to come back in, when it's the right time to come back in, and how are they going to feel comfortable? So the other key learning for me in all of this is employees who've been out for a period of time, they need to see visible difference when they come back in. It's not just about behaviors, it's the whole look and feel of the place has to be different. So last week we introduced temperature checking on all our sites. So as employees come in every single day, they must go through a temperature checking. Hand sanitization is permanent everywhere, as are lots of those lovely yellow signs everywhere that we've now become familiar with COVID-19. So lots of signage everywhere. So the new routine, the old routine used to be swipe your card, the door opens, in you go and do your work. Now it's don't swipe your card, but you come in, you take your temperature, you hand sanitize, and you take your temperature check before you go to work. Testing, I mean, we're in a luxurious place, I suppose, in one respect, that we had access to NHS testing from the very early stages, which we've used, and thankfully we've had no positive cases. But we actually have bought our own testing kit that we will implement in June, because there are cases where, as a business, if particular employees with skill sets go sick, then the business goes down. So we'll be able to get that testing results in a matter of hours. The final thing I'll say is it's a new culture, it's a new normal. So we have to educate everybody for the future. So we're working on an education program at the minute that will be led by our CEO, a bit like Cathy said, the town halls are led by their managing director, that will educate everybody about what we've done and set out what we believe are individual responsibilities and commitments now to make it safe for every one of us for the future. So I'll leave it at that, if that's okay for now, Emer.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Denise. And Barry, by no means least, you know, you've set up this company, it's grown to be a very well-known brand, and all of this happens. What has been your experience then? Oh, there's his mic off. No, he's speaking and I can't hear him.
Barry, we're going to ask you to unmute yourself.
Oh.
Oh. Barry, on the control panel, top right-hand side, there's a little microphone.
Yeah, I should know this platform pretty well at this stage. Why don't we just get Barry back on? Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, apologies for that. I'm sorry. Yes, I was saying there that listening to both Denise and Cathy makes me feel a little bit better, because I thought I had big challenges, but nothing like those in front of Cathy and Denise. At Legal Island, we're a lot smaller than both Liberty and Norbrook. We have 23 staff. One is furloughed at the moment. All others are currently working from home. I'm the only one in the office. I live about 5 minutes from the office. The reason I'm in it is purely because I have a 5-year-old daughter who refused to accept that if Daddy's at home, Daddy can be working. So when I've been at home hiding in the office, she'll come and find me, and we end up going out to play and things. So I'm in the office so that I can have a full day at the desk and hopefully be productive. It was interesting, I think, for my staff, because I suddenly picked up for the first 2 weeks, morale was good. There was a lot of freshness, novelty. It was different. Everybody was quite excited about the big change that had been dropped on everybody. I think after about 2-3 weeks, I noticed that the honeymoon was beginning to wear off a little bit. And now I think there's quite a few staff that are looking forward to getting back to normal, or to something that resembled what we had before. And what's going to be interesting is really the negotiations that are going to happen now. And I would imagine that this is going to be the case for many companies, particularly those in the service industry, that, you know, home working is not new, but home working as standard is new. And that's the position that we have. And we can see, I think, employees and employers in the next few weeks meeting to sort of say, okay, where are we now? And where do we want to be as the fog of the virus lifts and we go back to some sort of semblance of normality. Legal Island is not strange to home workers. When I started this company in 1998, and the very first 5 employees that we had were all working from home. So it's not a new phenomenon to us. And before the virus happened, there were quite a few staff that were working some hours or some days at home and some days in the office. Emer, last week at Legal Island, we did a survey of 800 companies or employees, and we asked them what they wanted now as we got ready to go back to work, whether they wanted to work more home hours, the same hours or fewer than before the crisis. And more than 80% got back and said they would be wanting to work more hours at home after this particular experience and experiment. In terms of our own work at Legal Island, there was a huge uplift in interest for a lot of our e-learning products. I think quite a few employers realized that they had staff at home that were under capacity, and there was an opportunity there for them to be trained. So our e-learning modules, particularly around data compliance for home workers, have proved to be very, very popular. So we've got a sales and marketing team that have been especially busy over the last few weeks. We've had to look at our training offering or our information services and think, okay, can we digitize those and take them completely online? And we're having to guess a lot in terms of what our customers are going to want in terms of our bigger employment law events. Are they going to want, you know, big face-to-face conferences like they were used to with us before? Are they going to want something digital only? Are they going to want a choice between both of those things? But there's lots of opportunity, you know, to reach a global audience or to reach a bigger audience insofar as there's going to be an awful lot of people now, a lot more used to Zoom and Skype and so on, and doing stuff from their desk rather than getting up and coming out to a hotel or to a conference center. A lot of our time at Legal Island is spent networking, finding experts and trainers that we can use and so on and so forth. And this has been a good opportunity for us to reach out and talk to a lot of new people and to revive old contacts and so on and so forth. A bit like both Cathy and Denise, we spent quite a bit of time working on morale issues, just making sure morale is good. The MD has done a great job in dropping in various things for us to do online with a social element. The big thing this week is that each member of staff has been asked to send an email with 3 statements about themselves, 2 of which is true, 1 of which is a lie. And so we've had quite a bit of fun with that and finding out lots of things about staff that we didn't know before. Safety out and safety back is obviously a thing that's concerning us now. The MD and the office manager is working on return to work. So we've looked at having the office thoroughly cleaned and ready in readiness for return of some workers. And generally speaking, you know, I've looked at this, and so has the MD, and we've tried to look at the opportunities. We've tried to look for the quick wins here in this new environment. And one I think that's particularly interesting is we're changing how we're doing meetings now. It's a lot easier through Zoom, and if you've got 8 or 9 in a meeting. Before, you had to be quite a skilled manager just to make sure that everybody had pretty much the same input to a meeting. Whereas now it's quite easy. You know, you've got 10 in a group, and there's 50 minutes. They each get airtime of 5 minutes. And it's an opportunity, I think, to be a lot more inclusive in the way that you manage meetings. You can hear from quieter ones a bit more, perhaps younger ones a bit more, the less experienced, and so on. So there's lots of things around there that are new and fresh, and I think are quite interesting. I think, can we pass back to you, Emer, now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you. I think, you know, 3 contrastingly different environments in some ways, and some of the lessons you're learning and that I'm hearing is this kind of, you know, trying to reach out to people in ways that are human as well as just work-based, and that there's a real opportunity here for people to actually get to know each other better in a strange way than possibly you might have expected in this kind of two-dimensional platform. There's a question here for Cathy. What technology are you using, Cathy, for your all-together calls, and how many people can you get online at one time?
Okay, I realised after I talked that I probably should have introduced the organisation. So Liberty IT, we're roughly 600 people in 2 offices in Belfast and Dublin, and we're a subsidiary of Liberty Mutual Insurance, a global insurer, and we write the software that allows them to sell their products in a nutshell. So in terms of the technology we're using for those all-together calls, we're using MS Teams, and there's a live option on it, and we have had up to about 450 people on those calls.
Wow.
Yeah, very good. And I think, oh, we've lost you again, Cathy. It's notwithstanding. For Cathy, we keep losing your sound, Cathy. While Cathy's getting back on sound-wise, I'm going to ask you a question, Denise, if I can bring you back in again. I guess you guys have made a significant move in terms of establishing the type of health and safety procedures that are needed to get back to work. And a lot of our clients, just colleagues and friends, are talking about, you know, how do we get people back to work for 2 reasons. One, it may be that work just happens better when more people are in the office and it's more efficient, but also for the reason Barry mentioned and Cathy and I have discussed before, some people want to get back in the office. While not having the same scale, not everybody will have the same scale and maybe resources as Norbrook. Denise, what would be your kind of key piece of advice to business leaders trying to plan that return to work in a way that both keeps people safe, but also gives the confidence that they're safe? Because I think they're probably 2 slightly different things. And the second might be the one that's most important in terms of getting people back into the office or encouraging people.
So for me, it's instilling in everybody and showing them how safe it is. And actually, the most useful thing about that is employees themselves. So one of the things we have seen probably for the first time in my time in Norbrook is employees being their own advocates and talking to those that are not at work about, gosh, did you see or did you hear they've done this, they've done that? You know, it really is a different place to work. So that visibility, as I mentioned earlier, people need to see it, touch it. That's really, really important. And I've heard that on other calls as well around just the visibility of the difference in the organization is really, really key. And then employees, obviously, as ambassadors or as advocates, talking about that. The other thing which I didn't talk about earlier is, and I'm sure we all have this, open plan offices. So we significantly depopulated open plan offices, and we will continue to do that. So as we talk about bringing people back to work, we will not bring everybody back at the same time. We will maintain those significantly depopulated offices. So where we may have had 12 people in a large open plan, we will have 4. So we have to work on a rota. And that's another way of actually re-engaging or instilling confidence in those that have been working from home. You will not come back into what might seem now a crowded office. It wasn't in the past, but in today's the new normal, it's a crowded office. So we're going to have to look at rotas. So working from home or home working is definitely here to stay. Then we might shift the balance between office and or site and work and home rather. But so the confidence, the visibility. The other thing which has been really helpful as well is employees calling out poor behaviours of others. So again, it's that cultural piece. So when you see employees, not managers, when you see employees calling out their peers for not washing their hands or not having sanitized or ducked the temperature check, you know that that's when people have got it. And again, sharing those stories. And the final thing then is the training that I talked about. So we're creating a short video. I mean, a video as in a compilation of pictures with some sound behind it, nothing fancy, or some voiceover on it, that will show the employees before they come back into the office what the new office looks like now. Very good.
That's a really good idea, just even in terms of knowing what you're going into. Cathy,
Yes.
we just went over to Denise there when we lost you briefly, but I understand that you're back.
I'm back. I don't know where I got to. I don't know. I have had no issues in the last 10 weeks working from home, and today they're all happening.
God's love.
So what I had said was we were using MS Teams. Did you get that? For our all together calls, and we've had up to 450 people on those calls without any real issue. We're using Poll Everywhere for gathering questions and allowing employees to vote on those in real time, so the most popular questions get to the top of the list.
Okay, which is another good way of just ensuring people's voices heard, I guess. As is always the way in these things where you have people with good stories to tell, time moves fast. But Barry, I'm going to ask you a question, which is, I suppose, a little bit around the leadership piece, in terms of you're the figurehead there, you're the person that makes the decisions, etc. What for you has been the thing that has got you through, or what mechanisms have you used as advice to other leaders that will help them, I suppose, make the best decisions, manage their stress, all of the stuff that inevitably is experienced when you're responsible for potentially the fates of many people and the future of your business. Not to make it sound too heavy and frightening.
That's a great point. I just wanted to come back to something that Denise said there, which I think is very relevant. And it's, I think Denise said something like, we're all in very much uncharted waters, and there are points in which we are just making this up as we go along. I don't think there's any harm as a leader of a business to sort of make that clear and say, okay, this is new for everybody, including the leadership of a business. But to try and reassure everybody that you're doing the very best that you can, that you are listening, and you're listening to staff, you're listening to news announcements, and as you go through every day, you will try your hardest to take good decisions, which will keep everybody safe, keep us all working, and give us our best chance of moving out of this period and being as ready as we possibly can for the recession that inevitably we're going to have to deal with. But in terms of just keeping yourself right as a leader, I think it's very important to just keep reminding yourself of just how fortunate you've been through this virus, because there really have been some terrible stories of what's been happening to people. And so whilst you may think gracious is bad and it's going to be tough over the next 6 months, it really is very, very easy to find other people who've been much more directly affected by this. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is always to look for the opportunities, because inevitably when something happens like this, which is a major game changer, it really is huge, and the disruption caused by this is absolutely huge. If you look past all sort of business history and the history of entrepreneurs, it's very often come at a point in which they've either had to, because there was a recession on, or something just happened, that a black swan happened and there was an opportunity. So in all of this firefighting and responding quickly, I think it's also important to take a moment to step back and look for the opportunities that are here.
Thank you, Barry. And it is a good reminder occasionally that, if we were leading the team on the COVID wards, that would be a whole other sort of conversation, I guess, Cathy, can I ask you the same question, and then I'll ask you the same, Denise, and we may have to call it a day.
What's got me through? Lots of different things and lots of different people. So I think, opening up and, sharing when I'm having a bad day with the team, just taking personal time with the team, going into a one-to-one and not worrying about getting through business and just connecting on a personal level. I find my kids keep me incredibly well grounded. So my daughter said to me, there is no point you sitting on those calls saying, family first, work second, unless you're going to do it. So, I made a commitment to her that every day I would take an hour out during the day and we would go for a walk and just talk about what 14-year-old girls talk about. So, you know, simple things like that keep me balanced, keep me sane, and ultimately the engagement levels that we're seeing coming back from our employees is making all of this worthwhile. So, you know, we know we're moving in the right direction. So I'm getting my, I suppose, my rewards in terms of the feedback that we're getting from employees.
Thank you. What about you, Denise?
I think the switching off has been really important. We can all get just totally consumed by the news, by the constant updates, be it webs or web updates, etc., etc. So for me, in the first few weeks, I was listening to every broadcast that was going, which government was coming out with what, you know, to keep up to date or whatever. And then it was, no, I need to switch off. When I go home, I'm not going to listen to the news every evening because it's the same thing over and over again, or it's contradicting itself. So switching off, with children help absolutely on that. The other thing that has absolutely got me through all of this is a HR network of, I don't know, 60, 70 people in Northern Ireland that I've never met any of them. But we email each other, and it's always where everyone is willing to help each other, share ideas. There's no, this is the idea that we're doing in my company and I'm not going to share it with you. And it's just bouncing ideas off each other, and even bouncing frustration off each other as well. But you know that you've got that virtual network of support out there, as well as our own team in HR. Like Cathy, you know, we have the downtime, but we check in daily on each other just to make sure we're doing okay, because we're all dealing with different people in the business and different issues as well. So those check-ins, switching off, and just venting every now and again is not a bad thing.
Absolutely. We've all done a little bit of that at least. And as I mentioned earlier, wine can't be the only solution, but it's okay sometimes as well. I read an article recently that from a kind of leadership author describing the fact that leaders had become human beings in the eyes of many of their teams. And Cathy, you made reference to that earlier. And I think that authenticity is definitely, or hopefully, going to sort of create a shift in leadership, and that sort of trust-based type leadership that's needed, where you have people working remotely and doing big things very quickly and they can't be stood over. So it will be interesting to see, as well as the ways of working that Barry has described in terms of a shift to remote working or to more remote working, among other things, whether there will be a kind of cultural shift in terms of leadership and management, and how we see actually people engage better when it is a bit more authentic and it is a little bit with a bit more autonomy. I have learned a lesson today. 30 minutes is not enough, with the kind of detailed information that could be gleaned from each of you. Barry has recently released a book on engagement, so I am sure Barry will happily give a quick plug on that if anybody would like to look for sort of some very practical stuff around how you engage people. And I know if you watch the websites of Norbrook and the social media feeds of both Norbrook and Liberty IT, you'll get lots of insight into what those organisations are doing. Again, it might just give us, you know, you ideas for your own businesses. Barry, what's your book called again?
My book is called Mastering Small Business Employee Engagement. It's out in ebook or Kindle format at the moment through Amazon. We're hoping to have the audio version read by Sarah Travers up by the end of the week, and you can pre-order the book as well online. So yeah, thank you for allowing me that plug, Emer.
And to be fair to Barry, he didn't ask for it, but I felt, you know, all the help that we can all get at the minute, I think is welcome. Look, all's left to say thank you very much, Cathy, Barry and Denise. I really appreciate your time, and I'm sure that, you know, you couldn't have listened to each of those stories and not taken away something of use for other organisations. So thank you, and best of luck with taking things forward.
Thank you, Emer.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody. Bye.